Hello everyone, welcome back to Toasted Mushroom. I apologize if you hear an echo or anything like that. I did move locations and still getting things set up, so just to keep that in mind. So, today I wanted to talk to you about something that was brought up to me by a couple of viewers. They said, hey, would you make a video explaining the different fusion methods in Dragon Ball? Of course, I said yes, before they finished their statement. The rest of their statement followed as for the androids, the different methods that the androids go through for fusion. Now, of course, this is a much more daunting task because it's kind of hard to identify what is an android fusion and what isn't. But either way, I wholeheartedly accept, and I will try to accomplish that today. So, first, let's explain and make a couple of ground rules. So for the purposes of this video, fusion is going to be defined as the combination of two or more entities that form into one, and that resulting entity is going to be stronger than both parts. So this definition can be different depending on the circumstances that we discuss, but they will follow this kind of general rule. As for the video, I will be setting up two sections. One for official fusions and one for unofficial fusions. Both sections are going to be fairly loose, but it kind of helps me organize the video into that way. So first it'll be official fusions, then unofficial. Now the second rule that I will be considering is that the fusions that we see in Dragon Ball fusions will not be considered in this video. So they just have a lot of different fusions that we can see, and those will not be kind of talked about today. The structure is roughly chronological for this video, so we'll be going through the different fusions that way, even if it makes a little less sense in certain circumstances. It just helps a little bit. The first entry is entirely stretching the definition of android, ironically. The Pilaf machine is not a sentient machine, but instead a series of robots piloted by the crew Emperor Pilaf and his minions Mai and Shu. I wouldn't normally include something like this, but there are a couple of reasons that I am. One, it is technically our only Dragon Ball entry, and I kind of felt bad that Dragon Ball was left out. Two, the Budokai Tenkaichi series lists the combined version as a fusion, so we will be going with that. Unlike other fusions on this list, the combination of different parts of the Pilaf machine only increases the strength superficially. The strength of the combined robot is equal to the parts themselves, but now combined into one single quote-unquote entity. The fusion is completed when the three robots, piloted by the Pilaf crew, snap together and form a larger humanoid robot. Goku has no more difficulty fighting this form of the Pilaf machine compared to when they were all separate pieces. The next fusion we will be talking about doesn't happen until much later. We are talking about Cell. Cell was actually created by the supercomputer of Dr. Gero, meant to be his final and greatest creation. The fusions we talk about when mentioning Cell are a bit different when we consider them in comparison to the fusions done by the other characters that we'll be discussing later in the video. He more so absorbs them, but with the definition that we did establish in the beginning, this would be fair game. We see two versions of a fusion with Cell. One where he absorbs Android 17, and one where he absorbs Android 17 and 18. These result respectively in the semi-perfect Cell form and the perfect Cell form. It is unknown if the order in which the androids are absorbed influence the appearance or strength of Cell after these fusions. In both situations, the criteria remains the same. Cell absorbs the android using his tail that opens up at the end, and it is unknown whether the android being absorbed has to be weakened first, or if it doesn't matter. But we see both androids get absorbed, and seemingly both cannot put up much of a fight against the process. With each fusion, Cell's power increases dramatically both times, and his appearance changes to be more human-like both times. Cell also takes on some of the characteristics of the androids, like using Android 17's speed to catch up to Android 18 and 16 faster, and using Android 17's voice to entice 18 to be absorbed as well. The final fusion, Perfect Cell, is strong enough that it needs to be fought by Gohan in his Super Saiyan 2 form, and at this point is outclassed completely in strength. The next one we're going with is Android 13. Android 13 becomes Super Android 13, also known as Merged Android 13, when it fuses with both Androids 14 and 15. Some theories as to why the Android can absorb others is that it was a precursor to the functionalities that were used on Cell. As talked about before, fusions function more like an absorption in this case and result in a major change in both power and appearance. Once both Android 14 and 15 are destroyed by the Z fighters, Android 13 is able to telekinetically control the memory cards and power cores of the two destroyed androids. The fusion works when he is able to take the cards and cores into his body, memory cores in each temple, power cores on both sides of his chest, and utilize the power for himself. The fusion gives Android 13 a much larger appearance, possibly referencing the Super Saiyan Grade 3 form that Trunks takes, or Broly's legendary Super Saiyan form. The fusion is also considered to be weaker than Perfect Cell and is destroyed by Goku after absorbing the spear bomb he created and projecting it out of his body. Again, we make a super big jump as to when the next Android fusion appears. The Sigma Force is a team of elite machine mutants from planet M2. We see these characters named Ribbit, Bizu, Nat, and Commander Nezi in the first arc of the Dragon Ball GT anime. The fusion takes place after the Z fighters, Pan, Trunks, and Goku, realize that the robots are reprogrammed to follow their movements and they have to change what they would normally do in a fight to beat them. Once they figure this out, they quickly gain the upper hand on the Sigmas and defeat Nat, forcing the remaining 3 members to join forces and fuse together. The fusion is named the Super Mega Cannon Sigma, or the Sigma Force Cannon, a conglomeration of characteristics of the original 3 machine mutants. With this transformation, they are stronger than they were, but they are still no match for Goku, especially in terms of their speed. The story of this fusion does continue, however. After the Sigma Force is defeated, General Rilldo, another stronger machine mutant on M2, comes to fight Goku as well. After Rilldo starts losing to Goku, he has no choice but to fuse again with the remaining pieces of the defeated Sigma Force. His appearance remains largely the same, but with some additional armor and appendages grafted to his body. This fusion is called Hyper Meta Rilldo, a fusion which allows Rilldo to utilize a lot of capabilities of the Sigma Force, but only increases his power slightly. Rilldo, after Goku surpasses the transformation in strength, eventually opts to transform his body into liquid metal to utilize the planet's metal coating rather than remaining with the fusion. The next one we see is Super Android 17, and he is the fusion between Android 17, the one we see in Dragon Ball, the same one who fused with Cell, created by Dr. Gero, and a machine mutant replica of Android 17 created by both Dr. Mu and Dr. Gero. Because Android 17 was meant to be part of Cell, the original consensus is that there were various imperfections within the design of Android 17. Dr. Mu and Dr. Gero felt that because Android 17 would be the easier android to control, they created a machine mutant version of Android 17 to fill in the imperfections of the original. In turn, the resulting fusion of the two creates a more powerful version of Android 17. The way this fusion is performed is different from the other ones that we've seen. It involves 2 Android 17s moving in sync toward one another, both facing forward. It looks as though one Android 17 passes in front of the other, but the idea is that they are passing through each other in order to fill each other's quote-unquote gaps. The fusion is taken out by absorbing too much of Super Saiyan 4 Goku's energy, to the point that his body can no longer contain it all. Mira is an android created in the demon realm and resembles a denizen of that same realm. He is created by Towa, a demon realm scientist and sister to the original Demon King Dabura. Mira's main goal throughout his life is to become the strongest fighter in the universe. To accomplish this, he uses his ability to incorporate various fighters' DNA into his own, to utilize their strength and abilities. We won't classify this process as fusion currently, but this is the basis that we see for his final fusion. Now, when Mira faces the Future Warrior in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, he is continuously defeated. That is, until he comes into the possession of Toki Toki's Time Egg. As a last-ditch effort, and exhausting the rest of his options, he absorbs the Time Egg and his creator Towa into his being. The appearance of this fusion makes Mira resemble a Super Saiyan 4, with his arms and parts of his torso being covered in white fur. He also takes some of his appearance from Towa despite the fact that he remains the dominant personality in the fusion. The biggest difference comes from the power that he has access to, as it is vastly greater than before the fusion. His personality changes with this fusion to one similar to Perfect Cell as well, but this is most likely due to the newfound power and not any of the original fusees influencing the new fusion. Ultimately, this fusion is not stronger than the combined might of Super Saiyan Blue Goku and the Future Warrior. The next android fusion we're talking about goes by the name of Koisireta. Universe 3's fighters in the Tournament of Power consist mostly of robotic warriors, each with their own capabilities and strength. All of them created by Dr. Pepperoni, and while they are sentient beings, they are under pseudo-mind control at times. Koisireta is the fusion of the robots Borareta, Koisukai, and Pansia, seen in the anime version of the Tournament of Power. Much like the Sigma Force cannon or the Pilaf machine, this fusion looks like a mixture of the three robots which make up its structure. This fusion is completed when Borareta connects to the bottom of Pansia and Koisukai connects to the top, acting as the head. This fusion is defeated by Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta, making an opening for Ultimate Gohan to perform his ultimate Kamehameha, damaging both of the fusion's hands. Agnilasa is the fusion of Koisireta and another person from Universe 3. In the anime, we see Dr. Pepperoni fuse with the other fusions to create Agnilasa, but we see in Dragon Ball Heroes that they can be two separate entities. This suggests that the fusion can be performed by different members of Universe 3. The fusion, unlike the one before, looks nothing like the individual members. It is a large humanoid shape with white skin covering the top third of its body, dark skin covering the middle third of its body, and purple skin covering the rest. The fusion also has many power gems throughout its body, notably a red one on its forehead, greener smaller one on its solar plexus, and two large red gems on its forearms. This fusion is able to grow wings on its back at will as well. The way we see this fusion completed is when Dr. Pepperoni calls all the other robots to him with his staff. After a large flash of light, the character morphs into Agnilasa. Agnilasa has enough power to go against the remaining members of Universe 7, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Android 17, Android 18, and Frieza. It is only when Android 17 figures out and exploits the weaknesses of this fusion that they are able to beat it and win. At this moment, that concludes the Android fusions that are considered official. We will now be going over the unofficial fusions for the next part of this video. Super Android 18 is a fan creation by ZeroWolf64XD, which illustrates what would happen if the character went through a similar process to the one Super 17 went through in Dragon Ball GT. The premise is much the same, where there is a machine mutant version of Android 18 created in Hell, and that comes to Earth to fuse with and take over the normal Android 18. Unlike Android 17, who was much more easily controlled, the machine mutant version of Android 18 had to fuse with her counterpart by force. Seemingly, this fusion is not as strong as Super 17, following the trend that Android 18 is weaker than 17 in general, as stated in Dragon Ball Z, but this fusion has an additional ability to inject and administer poison into the person she is fighting, much like Frost in Dragon Ball Super. She also does not have the ability to absorb energy through her body, instead having to absorb it through an absorbing barrier. This fusion is defeated by the combined power of Piccolo and Super Saiyan 4 Goku. The next one we'll be talking about is Android 35, the fusion between Android 17 and 18. This fusion is non-canon, but does have some canon roots in Dragon Ball anime and video games. This fusion is mentioned twice during the Dragon Ball story. Once during the Tournament of Arc Power, where Supreme Kai mentioned that they would be the best candidates for fusing since they are so similar. The fusion is mentioned again during the events of Dragon Ball FighterZ, when Gogeta Blue brings up the idea. This fusion is created using the Potara earrings, since their power levels are too different in scale to be done with a Metamoran fusion dance. Since the fusion has been completely hypothetical as of this video, the appearance is constantly fluctuating. Some depictions show a Super 17 looking android with long blonde hair and a muscular male leaning build. Some show the character half blonde, half black haired with the Tournament of Power attire. In Dragon Ball Heroes, we see a fusion done by two characters. The Tuffle Machine, Hatchiyack, built to destroy the Saiyans, and the Tuffle Machine Mutant, made to destroy the Saiyans, named Baby. It seems like this fusion is a perfect combination of ideologies. It is shown in Dragon Ball Heroes, which is considered not canon, so there aren't many details for this character. We know what the character looks like. The fusion is mostly based on Hatchiyack, with his base being almost completely the same. The baby influence comes from the yellow and red protrusions that appear on Hatchiyack and the robotic lines seen throughout the design as well. The fusion greatly increases the power of both of the fusees, as before the fusion, Super Saiyan Goku was about to destroy Baby. Once the two fuse together, it takes the combined might of Goku, the Time Patrollers, and the Dragon Ball heroes to put the fusion down. The next Dragon Ball Super fusion is Kamin and Oren. The fusion of Kamin and Oren, two machine mutants very much like Baby, is shown in Dragon Ball Heroes. Like the fusees, this fusion has completely white skin and blue colored eyes. It also has one side of its body with red details and the other with blue details, signifying the merging of its two halves. Kamin and Oren decide to fuse while fighting Ultra Instinct Goku, since they are grossly outmatched. When they fuse together and proceed to keep fighting Goku, they continue to be outmatched even with their newfound strength. They then fall back while another antagonist engages Goku. In the anime version of these events, the fusion is voluntary with both parties consenting to it, while in the manga version the fusion is forced onto Oren by Kamin. Kamin and Oren is defeated twice. Once by Super Saiyan Blue evolved Vegeta, and again by the combined effort of Piccolo and Android 17. The fusion also has a powered up state that they power up into after losing to 17 and Piccolo, and this form is defeated again by Ultra Instinct Goku. The last point I'd like to make in this video is something that is explored a bit in Dragon Ball FighterZ but isn't entirely realized. Android 21 is an android created after Cell, which allows her to have the DNA of the Majin race within her. This allows us to speculate on a couple of things. As a member of the Majin race, she is able to absorb people like the rest of the Majins we see. With the rules set in place, this could also count as a fusion because she is an android first and foremost. In the game, we see that she absorbs the fighters that she goes against, but for gameplay, it doesn't allow for full absorption. Instead, the absorption mechanic allows her to steal the moves from the character she is fighting. They aren't official, but there are a multitude of fusions that could result because of this reason. Hello everyone, sorry mic quality might be different, different setup, so it's kind of different, and I apologize to that, but I hope you all enjoyed it. It was a long process, but we finally got everything explained. Thank you to everyone who was involved with the making of this video. I encourage you all to please check out the sources that I have in the comments. I have a link with each of them, so you could check those out at your discretion. Please stay tuned for things coming in the future. There will be a lot more to come. Thank you, and remember that if you are not toasted with toasted mushroom, you're just baked.